Probably the biggest question I've had all week is, hey man, are y'all canceling church? Y'all canceling church? And when people ask that question, most of the time their response is on one of two ends of the spectrum. For some people, when they say, are you canceling church, they're really kind of stuffy about that and can't believe that we're not actually going to be in the physical building as the people gather together. And so there's a lot that goes with that. Now, there's another end of the spectrum where people are saying, hey man, are we canceling church? And some of y'all are like, for the first time, you're having church and you're sitting at home in your pajamas or your underwear and you're like, I could get used to this. All right, well, don't get real used to it. But we are today having church this way. But I want to push back a little bit on this idea, are we canceling church? Well, I think you'd really have to ask yourself, what is the church, right? For some of us, we would say, hey, the church is the building. And, whenever I was growing up, we were going to run down to the church or, go over to the church or whatever. And so the church became the building. And while we would say the church is the building, that's not really what the church is. For some of us, church is the service, right? We're going to church to have church, right? How was church today? People are going to ask you, how was church today? What they mean is, hey, was the music any good? Was the sermon too long? Do I really need to waste my time with it? That's what they're asking you. How was the service? But church is not the service, even though we would say, I'm going to church to have church. No, sometimes you can have church and not even be at the church or even have a service. Come on, anybody here ever got a raise, got a date, and just had church up in your car or whatever, right? You got good news. You having church up in here, man, I am worshiping God. I'm just praising God. You can have church without having a service. For many of you, you're educated, hey, man, the church is the people, right? And by definition, that's true. The word in the New Testament for church is the called out ones. You're called out from sin and self and the world, and you're really called to Jesus and to a brand new life of following Him. That's what it literally means to be the church. And those people who are called out actually do gather together, right? Hebrews encourages us about this. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25 reads like this. Don't forsake our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encourage one another all the more as you see the day drawing near. In other words, listen, the church, the called out ones, we need to get together. We need to make it a practice of coming together because good things happen when we worship together. Now, we can't do that right now, right? We can't do it today, but we need to let this become our habit of whenever the virus is done or whenever we get the opportunity to be back together, we need to come together because that's what God's people do. We encourage each other. We inspire each other as we gather together.